We're gonna talk about the House of David today, that new show on Prime, Amazon Prime Video. And actually, they've wrapped up all the filming, all the episodes are out. I've actually seen the entire season. You've just been able to see episode 1 so far, correct?
Correct.
All right, cool. I just rewatched episode 1, so I'm pretty fresh. I also have been actually, since the show started, I've been brushing up on some of the Bible stuff as well. It piqued my interest, and I decided to kind of dive into a little bit more of that. But anyway, I guess we can walk through this first episode, and it starts out with the opening scene with David versus Goliath, right? And then we kind of go back a year, and now we're starting with prior to that battle. We're introduced to David, we're introduced to Samuel, and we're introduced to King Saul, essentially, are the three primary characters. But tell me your thoughts. Yeah, Jonathan. I mean, there's a lot of important characters. I would say that, well, I'd say the three most important would have been those three. But in any
Right.
case,
I mean,
what were your
if
thoughts?
God wipes out the Saul dynasty, then Jonathan ceases to be nearly as important. But at least in this first episode, he's a pretty important character, and he wants to follow God, and he's compassionate toward his people. So, he's made a pretty big splash in the first.
Yeah, and that's actually important whenever we get to some of the stuff that he did. So, well, tell me what your thoughts were with the opening scene.
The opening scene where he steps out of the crowd and actually goes toward Goliath.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was the opening scene. Takes a lot of balls, but if you read the Bible, he was actually offered armor, and he wisely turned it down because his main advantage, not only against Goliath, but any trained warrior, is going to be his speed, agility, flexibility. And if he were to suddenly encumber himself with armor, which even if you're used to it is an encumbrance, he had never worn it. If he had put that on, that would have almost ensured his death. But he stayed agile, he stayed loose, and I'm going to be honest. David as a character hasn't impressed me because working as a shepherd boy back then, everybody could use a sling that well. Everyone could use a big quarterstaff, and they had to because they defended those sheep from lions. They defended them from, whatever bear type critters are over there, wolves, from all the predators, not to mention human bandits and whatnot. That was their weapons of preference. So, the fact that this kid could shoot like that with a sling, I'm sure every one of his peers could do it as well too.
I mean, it's funny you say that. Like, yeah, what's your point though? I mean, it's not like they.
Well, my point is,
what are you trying to be impressed by? The point is that he has the courage. That's the difference, right? Is that he's willing to take on the giant. He's not feared. He has God on his side. It's not about.
Well, yeah, that's where the whole God thing comes in, because God can take the ordinary, right, and raise it to the extraordinary. Did he not do that with Saul? Right, Saul was the smallest tribe of the Israelites, and he became the king, and so he was raised from the ordinary up to the extraordinary.
Well, I'm confused in a few respects to that. One being, I mean, it's the first episode. Secondly, you already know the story. Everybody knows the story already. Third, what is it that you were hoping for? I mean, yeah, he's a normal shepherd boy. That's kind of the point.
Well, yeah, and that's actually what I was hoping for. I didn't want something that came out and just, bowled you over and, there he is. That wouldn't be realistic. The whole point, I think, if you're talking about from the biblical sense, the whole point is not David at all, it's God's power, right? And in their mythos, God can take whatever he wants and raise it as high as he wants. Right? That's their mythos. So here you have this ordinary kid, and thank God they made him look like he comes from that area. You know?
Yeah, they did. I think they did a pretty phenomenal job with most of the casting, actually.
Yeah, I've liked it. Anyway, so the story goes in the Bible that, basically if you obey God and you follow his direction and all that, then he can raise you as high as beyond your imagination. So there's Saul, right? But what happened when Saul decided to start following his own advice instead of listening to Samuel's interpretation from God? Well, then God brought him low. And this is how you get David coming in. So here's David, this ordinary kid who has no particular skills or abilities or wealth or poverty. There's no extreme about him. He's just a normal shepherd kid from his time. He has the same skills, right? He uses a sling, the quarterstaff. He knows how to take care of sheep. He's just an ordinary guy, and somehow, with the blessing and guidance of his God, he's going to go out and now usurp that dynasty. He's going to become the next king.
Right. And so post the opening scene, and we get this, essentially the flashback and now the narrative of the 1 year later leading up to this story. We were introduced to David and his father Jesse and everything, and he is this normal shepherd boy. How did you think with the lion, right? What were your thoughts on how they did that? I thought that they did well with the CGI on that. I mean, it looked like a real lion. Did
Yeah,
good.
yeah. I thought the visual were a little dark,
Mm-hmm.
but maybe I'm just getting more blind. Who knows? But yeah, it looked good. It was a big scary lion.
Well, and you mentioned, I mean, this was the major part of this opening episode is the forsaking of Saul due to his disobedience of God's will and the message from Samuel, and primarily, right? I mean, it was a variety of things within the Bible, but they really played it out here. It actually used some of the direct language where, you know, the Saul and Jonathan and the forces of Israel were tasked with completely obliterating the Amalekites, including Agag, their king, and then not taking any of the spoils. And you can very blatantly see that not only did they take on the spoils and began distributing them amongst themselves, but Agag is still alive there at the feet of King Saul. And this is what's kind of this is directly what led to God forsaking Saul and now needing to anoint a new king, that being King David. And I appreciated that as they, the curse that was placed upon Saul, where he goes mad essentially. And I liked the visuals that they did to kind of portray that. It's a recurring theme that you'll see throughout the other episodes as he goes mad. But what were your take on, I guess, that entire portrayal, and even the introduction to, so the kind of with that, the introduction where Jonathan, they're in one of the cities that had been attacked, and that's where you're introduced to the giant handprint.
Right. Now that was in episode 1. Saul starting to go crazy. I didn't see that in episode 1.
I can bring that up for you. So that's whenever Samuel goes, he goes to them. Remember, Samuel's up on, is it Ramah, up on the mountain,
Yeah, he's
and
up doing his
Samuel,
autistic monk thing.
yeah, and he asks, what have you done? Basically, realizing that Saul had not followed the order of God to, get rid of the Amalekites and not take on the spoils and all that. And that's why he goes to King Saul's tent. And actually, Reuben, the little boy that was picked up
The
by
sole
Jonathan,
survivor, right?
yeah, he was there inside the tent, but and kind of sees what goes on.
All right. So, did you notice that when Samuel was challenging King Saul regarding not listening, not obeying the commandments of God, and he said, you have not utterly destroyed the Amalekites. His next question was, why do I hear the bleating of sheep? Why do I hear the lowing of cattle? So
Yeah.
that instruction to smite the Amalekites, to wipe them out, it didn't mean just the human beings.
No, it's everything. And yeah, that's the point,
Right.
is it wasn't and that's where he was divvying up the spoils of war, including, yes, the animals and cattle and everything. And actually, I forget the exact lines within the text of the Bible, but it's repeated here. I know Samuel repeats the exact words. It was somewhere along the lines of, obedience is better than sacrifice, because that's Saul had said he was going to sacrifice, and oh, what was it? Something is greater than the fat of the ram, or something along those
Yeah,
lines.
well, he was talking about basically he's saying an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure.
Yeah,
If you
exactly.
would have just obeyed God, you wouldn't need to make these sacrifices, because the smell of the roasting meat is not as good as as having obeyed. The shine of the gold is not as good as having had obeyed. It's,
Yeah,
you're
this
offering
is
consolation.
one of the. I mean, I think most people are familiar with the very quick story of David and Goliath. That it's been interesting for me to go back and read through some of the Bible and see how much actually they're following quite a lot, including taking some direct quotes and stuff and throwing it in here. But this right here, this scene right here, is where Saul is now cursed and he's beginning to go mad. And this is the entire premise as to how David becomes in the house of Saul, is brought to Saul, because in the Bible, Saul, some of his servants say that, hey, maybe some good music basically would help ease your mind, and so they bring David, who plays the, what does he play, the lute or the harp? What's the name of it? It's the harp. Yeah,
Yeah, I
so
believe
David
it's something
comes and
called
plays,
a
and that's how they
lie.
become friends. Yeah, lyre. That's what I'm thinking of.
Yeah, and a type of harp.
Yeah.
All right, so yeah, I guess by episode 2 or whatever, you might be noticing he's going mad right there.
Well, he
Yeah, I
does
can't
this.
hear what they're
It
saying.
hasn't. Yeah, it hasn't happened immediately yet, but you'll see it. They do it's a visual thing that they do, a cinematography type thing, where they change the lighting and all of that, and it looks more like you're in this ethereal death realm, I would say,
Right.
where
Yeah. See, I would have
he
just
can no
put that
longer.
off the stress of arguing with his holy man. Because it's
Yeah.
always been a duel between the powers that be, right? Who
Oh, for
has the
sure.
real sway, the king or the pope?
The church,
Or,
basically. Yeah.
but I really like the portrayal of Samuel.
Mm-hmm.
So often, when you hear these stories, they leave out just how extreme these religious zealots are, right? And that's what he was. He was a religious zealot, and he's up talking to God on a mountain and whatnot, and then he gets angry on behalf of God, and he goes down, and he didn't just preach; he went and he killed a Gog, or whatever the guy's name was.
Oh
Uh,
yeah. Yeah.
he he took that warrior aspect onto himself, because that's what his God needed him to do. And I think that kind of zealotry is scary, but very fascinating.
Yeah, I mean, there's not a whole lot really else to talk about within this first episode, aside from, we're introduced to some Saul's daughters, two of his sons, even though there were more. You're introduced to some of David's brothers and sisters and all of that. But yeah, overall for me, I liked it a lot. Whenever I came in thinking House of David, I thought it was going to talk more so about the rule of David as king. It was going to kind of be, okay, David kills Goliath, and then now it's his rule thereafter. Whereas it's
Right.
this season, it's the reverse. It's, okay, how does he get to the point of killing Goliath? And I imagine that they're going to come out with the second season. At least I hope they do, because I've really enjoyed this one, and we'll continue to review the episodes as you watch them. But potentially the follow-up seasons will be, okay, here's David's rule now. I don't know if they'll end up doing that, or if this becomes a hit, maybe they'll end up trying to adapt other biblical stories. There's definitely a lot out there and plenty that I'd love to see done, to be honest.
And I wonder though if what influence is going to hold sway, because the church has forever wanted to present a particular picture, right? So the parts that they don't like, they gloss over. So, are they going to gloss over the fact that he forces adultery upon Bathsheba and then murders her husband?
Mm-hmm.
Are they going to try to make it look like it was more of an accident, or they were star-crossed lovers that couldn't help themselves, or are they just going to say this was a guy that got a lot of power, he got lusty and decided he could do what he wanted, and when he thought he was going to get caught, he covered his ass by having another guy killed?
Well, if it's anything like this season, I'd
way?
say they've been true to everything that I have read and understood from the Bible. And you also have to just, I don't know who's behind all of this, but this is an Amazon Prime video, right? It's not like the Vatican created this, or some Christian studio that I'm aware of. Well, maybe I don't know the exact. I don't know if this is a Amazon Prime produced film, or if they purchased this from some other. I honestly, I don't know, but I guess that's a good question. But honestly, they, if you think of it from an entertainment perspective and money making perspective, I'd imagine that they'd probably go with the former as opposed to the latter, staying more true to it, because it makes for better TV.
I think it would make for a more realistic interpretation. Certainly.
Well, people are into all the intrigue and the deceit and deception and betrayal and all that, which the Bible's full of, including the story of David and Bathsheba. All right, so before we hop off here, any additional thoughts here on this first episode?
I was glad the little girl didn't get eaten.
Oh yeah, David's
Remember
sister.
when the lion roared and he ran home and he found the doll?
Yeah.
And
yeah.
in my head, I was like, I don't remember any little girl getting eaten, or attacked by the lion. I don't remember it. And, then of course,
I've had a debate, and I'm not sure. Do you think that David, after he kills the lion, do you think what he has, the two things in his hand, are they the teeth or claws?
I thought they were claws because of the curvature, but they could have been the canine teeth. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't really know either. All right, well, until you're able to get episode 2, we'll be back with that one.
Sounds good.
All right.